As you can see, I don't know where the spectrum came from underneath there though, but in this Fraps video I have completed a full circle test, and this test is supposed to indicate basically there's electromagnetic frequencies inside the home and going through the outlets and into the electronics and appliances, and I believe that it is externally sourced and externally exacerbated. So between the two systems, having electric on in the home, and in addition to the external frequencies and signals, or whether it be Wi-Fi hotspots that they're using, a radio frequency beam, or a unfocused laser beam, a maser beam, or any focused narrowband beams that they might be using for ground surveillance, ground radar, ground signal surveillance. And eventually what it's doing is it is allowing net metering, utility usage metering, equipment monitoring, equipment surveillance, pedestrian surveillance, in addition to pedestrian imaging, and also linear energy weapons as a directed weapon. And I am the individual who is the suspect being followed, and the suspect that the test and the research and the harassment and hate crime is being conducted on. First and foremost, it's based on white supremacy. It's a hate crime, so more than often these are just to annoy, disrupt, and damage the electronics or the systems that I'm using. But as I've said, it also includes a pedestrian surveillance, which is using a CBI, BCI computer system algorithm and a logistics algorithm that is supporting a neural remote monitoring and neural analysis system that is tying in a logistics, pedestrian tracking, ground tracking surveillance algorithm. So between the two, they are trying to decipher and analyze neuronal impulses and neurological interest, in addition to location, usage, and placement. And so a number of things are calculated, but I'm not going to get into it. We're talking about the resistance of the materials that you're using, where you are, what location, geographic area, weather. All of these things are part of what is called remote viewing. A lot of these systems are probably research and military satellites that are strapped with military class weapons, that is the linear energy weapons, and they are ascertaining and acquiring live capture of a eugenics tool, a discrimination tool, a blighting tool. It's intended to make individuals ill, to blight them in order to give them cancer or physical impairments, and to induce necrosis and apoptosis, anything that would break down the body in order to lead up to cancer eventually. It is a long-term potentiated effect and long-term potentiation that they are going after to cause and induce an early death for a eugenics system on African Americans. And so it does two different things. It does one thing to the body, which is impairments, damage, neurological changes, neurological damage and impairment, specifically auras, autistic types of features, ADD, ADHD. Because of the neurological impairment, individuals are just lose their cognizance, and then on the other side, it's electronics. It serves as an impairment tool to electrical conductive processes. So the likeness between physical body and physical object is that it is an electromagnetic frequency allowing external frequencies and signals and pulses and lasers to severely interfere with whether it be a chemical electrical process in the body, or neurological, a neuronal process, or a channel electrical and silicon process in an electronic device. Both involve electrons, or they involve a chemical electrical process in either device or body. Okay, so with that said, I have conducted a test and finalized my hypothesis test on fairly critical evidence to indicate that there is electromagnetic frequency manipulation and coercion and being used in civilian homes to conduct hate crime and eugenics and discrimination and sabotage, in addition to surveillance, pervasive surveillance, which is obviously on reasonable suspicion, on whatever probable cause bullshit that they can basically circumvent having to acquire a warrant for, so that it does not have to be documented properly. And so in an age of technology, the biggest benefit of not documenting something is you cannot backtrack it, because everything is computer-based, database now. It's not paper. There's no clerk who's looking for these logs to be submitted every day or every week anymore. So it's easier for the government to get away with basically shadow covert ops, which is the problem. And what is exactly what this is called is a form of covert ops, and they basically undermine society, and it sounds like a conspiracy because it is, and it's a form of racketeering. It is a conspired crime. It is a form of mafia-esque, enterprised, business-oriented circumvention of constitutional and federal law in order to usurp. So what they're looking to do is usurp privileges, usurp money, usurp resources through extra legal privileges granted to them through government positions and military positions and law enforcement positions, and have in turn networked as an agent to white collar crime and hate crime, white supremacy, to privilege themselves specifically for the interests of those that they share white privilege or white supremacy interests with. So these are going to be upper class, middle class white citizens in the United States who are going to be doctors, lawyers, police officers, law enforcement, government agencies, FBI agents, investigators, anybody that you're going to come to and rely on to help you and protect the rights of citizens when something grotesque is occurring within the United States or corruption occurs. These are the individuals stand as a wall against the revealing of corruption and whistleblowing and proper investigation or proper justice or due trial, due process, and equal rights and equal opportunity. They stand against it as an agency by policy and procedure. This is what my federal case is based on, and I believe that I'm not going to get anywhere with it because it involves corporate interests, private interests, and military and national government interests, which is encircling basically the whole thing I just explained as an enterprise of business-oriented circumvention of law and civil rights and human rights in order to serve they call it an Agenda 21. Which is a eugenics program in the United States running in addition to fiscal financial inflation that is, basically legitimizing their work as the only meaningful work in the United States, despite, the currency being based off of monetary value. So my test is very obvious at this point. So you can see halfway through this video we're about 10 minutes in, and what's going on here is I was recording. I have a number of videos I have to go through here, so I'm going to turn it into a video actually just to prove my point and compare it to my other test. I began recording the events of electromagnetic frequencies and radiological dispersals. Quantum tunneling, not going to go into the details. A lot of people are going to denounce these things right off the bat because they don't know what they're talking about or what it involves or what it entails. But I'm using numerous terms and numerous things that under normal conditions, I'll say it again, under normal conditions, which people can't understand and separate facts and information, under normal conditions, obviously these things and these scientific physics and functions do not intermingle under those conditions. While this is a encompass and a very a culmination of modern science that is being directed on civilian property and at an individual in order to see how they can manipulate and induce cancer and manipulate the body and the body's development and coerce an early death. So it involves the normal, abnormal circumstances that I'm explaining as electromagnetic frequencies, radio frequencies, linear energy, and pulses, waves, Wi-Fi's, spot beams, you name it, low frequency, ground electric, static electric,